Hear the name Bruce Lee, what's the first thing that pops into your head? So when you hear the name Bruce Lee, what's the first thing that pops into your head? It's probably the lightning fast kicks, right? The nunchucks, that iconic yellow jumpsuit. But behind the martial arts legend was this incredibly profound thinker, a philosopher who actually studied at the University of Washington. In this explainer, we're going to go way beyond the movie star to really understand the man in his own words. I mean, his image is just iconic. He's a symbol of strength and cinematic cool. But, he was so much more than just a movie star. He was a cultural bridge, really. He brought the mystique of the East to the West and became a true global phenomenon. But here's the thing, for Bruce Lee, fighting was never just about fighting. It was a vehicle for something much, much deeper. A quest for understanding, for self-expression, and ultimately for truth. And this quote, man, this just cuts right to the heart of his entire philosophy. For him, it wasn't about showing off. It was about seeing the world and himself with total clarity. And that one principle guided pretty much everything he did. So where did all this start? Well, his entire philosophy really began with his approach to martial arts. He looked around and saw a fundamental problem with the way fighting was being taught and practiced. He felt that so many of the popular styles had just become too formal, too stiff. He described his own art, gung fu, which is a more general term for Chinese martial arts, as their fluid ancestor, something with a continuity of movement that he just wasn't seeing anywhere else. Lee used these really simple analogies to explain incredibly complex physical principles. He saw a karate punch as a rigid iron bar. Sure, it's strong, but it's limited. A gung fu punch, on the other hand, he said, was like a chain with an iron ball at the end. It had flow, it had a whip to it, and all that power was focused right at the very end point. It was just dynamic. For Lee, it all came down to efficiency. He hated the elaborate multi-step techniques you'd see in magazines. It was like, why go through 10 steps when one will do the job? His whole approach was about stripping away everything unnecessary until only the most direct, most effective expression remained. As he put it, one motion and he's gone. And this idea of stripping things down, well, it wasn't just for fighting. It was the foundation of his most famous life philosophy. This is really where he went from just being a martial artist to a true innovator. You see, Lee had a core problem with the very idea of styles. He saw them as these rigid doctrines that just put people in boxes. A style, he said, becomes a kind of gospel truth you can't change. It crystallizes. It stops you from growing, and it separates people by saying, my way is different from your way. So he came to this incredibly powerful conclusion. I do not believe in styles anymore. He just decided to abandon the entire concept. To him, it didn't matter if it was a Chinese way or a Japanese way of fighting. As he put it, unless humans have 3 arms and 4 legs, we're all basically working with the same equipment. Okay, so if you throw out the rule books, if you reject every established system, what are you left with? I mean, what's the alternative? His solution wasn't to create a new, better style. It was to have no style at all. It was to be like water. And think about it. Water can flow or it can crash. It takes the shape of whatever contains it, whether it's a cup or a teapot. It's the definition of total adaptability. This was his answer. Be water, my friend. And his whole be water philosophy, it served one ultimate purpose: honest self-expression. It was about being able to act totally and completely as yourself, without the limitations of some preset pattern. As he once said, to express oneself honestly, now that, my friend, is very hard to do. This passionate drive for honest expression wasn't just confined to his martial arts. It became the defining battle of his acting career in America. He was absolutely determined to change how Asian people were portrayed on screen. He said, Hollywood sure as heck hasn't shown the true Oriental. He was fighting against decades of these degrading caricatures, the pigtails, the subservient roles, the chop-chop accents. So by 1971, he was at this huge crossroads. In the US, he was on the verge of landing his own TV series, a show called The Warrior. But at the exact same time, his Hong Kong film, The Big Boss, shattered box office records, making him a massive superstar in Asia overnight. He had to choose, East or West. But the American path was full of barriers. He revealed that The Warrior was likely not going to happen because the studios felt that having a non-American lead was just too much of a business risk.
They were openly questioning whether American audiences would ever accept an Asian hero. So this constant struggle against rigid fighting styles, against Hollywood labels, against national identity, it all led him to his most profound and lasting conclusion about who he really was. He transcended the labels that everyone else tried to put on him. He saw past nationality and race, believing in a fundamental, shared humanity. It's such a simple idea, but for him, it was the ultimate truth. And this is the thought I want to leave you with. After all the fighting, all the fame, and all the philosophy, this was his ultimate identity. Not a fighter, not a movie star, not Chinese, not American, just a human being, expressing himself honestly.